This is it. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, that surprise recommendation. Six something this morning. So we're all scrambling around trying to figure out, how to vote on it. It looks pretty, it looks good. I'm not stupid. Yeah, well, I'm gonna listen to the conversation stuff and I'm gonna text you if I have a question while it's going on. Is that okay? Okay, talk to you later. Bye. Um,
Hi, everyone. I have a little bit after 1.
That's true. Thank you.
Ms. Graham,
Yes. How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
Oh, just peachy. Earthquake drills and site assessments.
Okay. We're about to get started.
I'm here.
Okay. Just be sure and mute when necessary.
Got it. Why, did you hear something? Whatever it is, I apologize for it.
No worries, ma'am. We're totally copacetic. No worries at all. Okay, as chair of the Arkansas School Safety Commission, I would like to call our meeting on September 27th, 2022 to order. As you guys know, this is our last official meeting. I'll have some additional words at the end. But let me just say at this point, thank each and every one of you for what you have done to help us move in the direction that we have. Okay, the first order of business is I will entertain a motion on the approval of the September 21, 2022 minutes.
So
Yeah.
moved.
Was that Marvin?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Dr. May, I'll second.
Senator Rutledge. All in favor, any discussion? Sometimes I forget that word. And all in favor? Any
Aye.
motion passes? Okay, we've got a couple of things that we need to go over today, a couple of recommendations. Several of them you knew were coming. Some of them you might not, and some of them, I guarantee you, one you don't know is coming. So let's put that into proper perspective for a minute. We do have one recommendation that was submitted a little bit late that I'm going to ask your patience in us trying to get it through before we're done today. So it's my understanding that I guess it's Director Kane, who was first on the list, does have one new recommendation that you wanted to put forth.
Yes, Madam Chair, fellow commission members. The recommendation I have before you is that district campuses should have corresponding numbers on classroom interior and on exterior surfaces, in parentheses, wall, door, or window, easily identifiable to first responders so that they can reference position of students and or intruders. And the justification for this is when emergencies occur, the rapid response of emergency workers and first responders to the incident is critical. Many schools have dozens of doors providing entrances and exits to their buildings. During an emergency, it may be necessary for responders to gain access through a door or window closest to the emergency scene. So numbering external doors and windows can be extremely valuable to emergency responders and will also assist the students and staff in acclimating themselves in case of an emergency. Door and window numbers should follow the International Fire Code for building identification. So there's a standard way of doing it that FEMA has used. And we've got all those listed there for you.
That's great. Director Kane, would you like to make a motion?
I would, Madam Chair. I move that the commission approve the following recommendation. District campuses should have corresponding numbers on classroom exterior and on exterior surfaces, wall, door, or window, easily identifiable to first responders so that they can reference position of students and or intruders.
I second.
Who was it that seconded?
Linda.
Oh, Linda. Okay. Ms. Graham seconded. Angela, would you take the roll call, please? Oh, is there any discussion? Dr. Dunn has to remind me, I've only done this how many months now? If it's green, it's on. Yes, Dr. Dunn.
Are there any downsides?
I honestly can't think of any. This is one of the requirements we have in our new construction of buildings as well. I'll be glad to let the law enforcement folks speak to that, how important that is.
I'll keep this. Here we go. How about now? I think you can hear me. So I think it's very important, you know, when there is any type of a crisis situation, a majority of our schools are large, just in Fort Smith, and then other districts as well. So being able to pinpoint the exact crisis, giving those officers, first responders, an opportunity to know exactly where that crisis is, helps us to have a quicker response time. Thus, hopefully, quickly resolving that situation or providing any type of medical support in a quick fashion.
Okay. So any other discussion? Okay,
No, that's a good question.
Angela, would you take the roll, please?
Dr. May,
Yes?
Mr. Burton,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Chief Chapman,
Yes.
Dr. Dunn,
Yes.
Miss Gann,
Yes.
Mr. Gary,
Yes.
Miss Graham,
Yes.
Miss Green Braswell,
Yes.
Sheriff Helder,
Yes.
Dr. Hernandez,
Yes.
Chief Hollenbeck,
Yes.
Dr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Miss Poston,
Yes.
General Rutledge,
Yes.
Miss Salas Ford,
Yes.
Miss Stone.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Super. Congratulations. Anything else from the Physical Security Subcommittee? Okay, super. Thank you, Tim, very, very much. Next on the list is Intelligence and Communication. Chief Chapman, you want to set me up?
Ma'am, I defer to you for these recommendations.
Geez, he doesn't want to have to, well, you're still going to have to see people fall asleep. I'm just going to tell you. Okay. Last time we were having a little bit of a discussion in relation to recommendation 2 under cybersecurity. And recommendation 2 is school districts should implement best practices in cybersecurity preparedness. The issue we talked about was backing up data. There was some discussion on whether it was required for them to back up or not. We still haven't got that clarified, but Director Gary and I resolved the issue that even if they are required, they still need to. And it's important from a best practice perspective that we make sure that we include backups, in particular that they be off-site. The other thing that I added to this is that oftentimes when people think of backing up their data, they'll do it every day, weekly, monthly, and they overwrite the previous times data. Well, one of the issues is oftentimes malware will be lurking in the software, in the system, and you don't know it's there. So if you're constantly overriding, what you're basically doing is that you're saving the virus in your system. So I added some language in here for the justification that talked about saving it at different, or saving it at different time intervals. So that you might want to save it a year ago, you might want to save it from 6 months, continue to update it, but you don't change what you have at 6 months. And then that way, if you get a ransomware attack, then it's going to allow there to be uninfected, for the lack of a better word, uninfected data that you can use. Now, you'll still lose some data, but it's better than losing it all. So we need to, I'm going to make the motion that we adopt recommendation 2 under cybersecurity, namely that school districts should implement best practices in cybersecurity preparedness. Is there a second? That was Crystal. Thank you, ma'am. Any discussion? Angela, would you call the roll, please?
Dr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Burton,
Yes.
Mr. Kane,
Yes.
Chief Chapman,
Yes.
Dr. Dunn, Ms. Gann,
Yes.
Mr. Gary,
Yes.
Ms. Graham,
Yes.
Ms. Green Braswell,
Yes.
Sheriff Hilder,
Yes.
Dr. Hernandez,
Yes.
Chief Hollenbeck,
Yes.
Dr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Ms. Poston,
Yes.
General Rutledge,
Yes.
Ms. Alice Ford,
Yes.
Ms. Stone.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Super. Thank you all very much. We've got two more cyber ones. The second one today is school districts should implement third-party risk management best practices to mitigate cyber threats. And what this has to do with is we can protect our own systems internally, but oftentimes we have vendors or third-party entities that provide a product or a service, or we allow them to have access to our data. There have been a number of incidents. Not most recently, but one of the biggest ones was Target. It was a heat and air vendor that somehow got access to Target's network, and they got hacked. And so through that, they were able to hack. Most recently, though, in January, New York City Public Schools were using a vendor for some looked like some at-risk student data. And the vendor was breached, and that jeopardized the personal information of close to 820,000 current and former school students. So it's really important that we put some policies in place and that we ask vendors, for example, how they're managing their cybersecurity. And sharing of personal information and those things. So we can mitigate these risks. And it would also include third-party contracts with surveillance cameras and open source. A 2022 annual report indicated that 55% of the K through 12 data breaches are vendor related, which is a very, very large number. And include third-party contracts with surveillance cameras and open source software applications used by schools. So it's important that we consider those when doing this. CISA, as CISA always does, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, I got it right this time. They offer some very, very good guidance and products, and those are included in that. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to make the motion that we adopt the recommendation that school districts should implement third-party risk management best practices to mitigate cyber threats. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Chief Hollenbeck? Any discussion? I got it this time. Any discussion? Angela, would you take the roll, please?
Dr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Burton,
Yes.
Mr. Kane,
Yes.
Chief Chapman,
Yes.
Dr. Dunn, Ms. Gann,
Yes.
Mr. Gary,
Yes.
Ms. Graham,
Yes.
Ms. Green Braswell,
Yes.
Sheriff Hilder,
Yes.
Dr. Hernandez,
Yes.
Chief Hollenbeck,
Yes.
Dr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Ms. Poston,
Yes.
General Rutledge,
Yes.
Ms. Alice Ford,
Yes.
Ms. Stone.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Super. Thank everybody. Last one on the cybersecurity end of things is school districts should ensure that particularly IT staff and leadership remain proficient in cybersecurity. Hackers are constantly changing their tactics, their strategies, and the kind of tools that they use. It's really important for everybody within an organization to be able to have a continuing education that they need in order to remain knowledgeable about cyber threats and potential for cyber attacks, But it's also critically important that they also know how to respond and recover appropriately. Now, one of the things that makes this a little bit more complicated is that currently there are about 500,000 cybersecurity positions in the United States alone that are open and unfilled. And even though we've got some great resources here in the state, namely UA Pulaski Tech and UA Little Rock, to name just two, that have cybersecurity education programs, the number of unfilled positions, no matter how good their graduates are, it's going to take a long time. So it's not only important for folks that are currently in cyber positions that have the correct education to be able to become more current and up to date on cybersecurity practices and enhance their knowledge and skills, but it's also important because there are folks who don't have that cybersecurity education who are in some of these positions. Like the example that I used before is that oftentimes librarians are the ones that are put in control of IT systems, only because, you know, they're the ones that dealt with data for the longest period of time, therefore they must be knowledgeable. Well, they're obviously not cybersecurity experts, but they need to be trained on the basics. And so for these two reasons, being current and up to date, as well as trying to get those who are currently in positions that do not have a cybersecurity education up to speed on their knowledge and skills, it's really important that the IT staff, but also the leadership, I can't emphasize the leadership part of it enough, because as a good leader, you need to know what's expected, and you need to make sure certain things are being done, and being able to understand, like the third-party risk management. That's more of a leadership function as opposed to an IT function. Now, as before, you know, we always talk about the free resources that are available. I spoke about the National Cybersecurity Preparedness Consortium. All of the courses are free. In the justification, I include the website for the National Cybersecurity Preparedness Consortium. We'll have an Appendix G, the same as in the interim report, that's going to show all the various classes that are available. And we're going to, since CJI is one of the founding members of the consortium, we're going to try to develop some NCPC certified instructors in Arkansas so that we can do some of the in-person classes. The other thing that we're doing with NCPC is that we're trying to develop some of these in-person classes also so they can be delivered virtually, so that we can hit as many as possible. But no big surprise, CISA also provides some training resources, and they're free. They have, but they're primarily focused on cybersecurity incident response. And I've got the web address where folks can go to, but they also include cyber range training events. And then they've got a series of 1-hour webinars focusing on cybersecurity topics such as ransomware, indicators of compromise, log management, web and email server attacks, and creating a network map. All those words that I know that you guys will forget after we're done with all of this.
Can-
Yes,
Can I ask a
ma'am.
question? So I do remember one word in your proposal, and it was the word proficient, right?
Mhm.
And so how will that be defined?
That's a really good question.
In some of the other recommendations, you know, where we say a minimum of this many hours
Right.
for people. So that was why I'm asking.
Right. That's actually I hadn't thought about it from that perspective. Yeah, you are. And this one's a booger. We could change the word proficient to current and updated. Anybody else have any thoughts on that, since Dr. Dunn just threw the dang card right over?
Dr. May, that was going to be my same question. So I didn't know if knowledgeable.
Now,
or
don't be
current-
contributing, Dr. Hernandez.
I know, I'm sorry.
So
But
what's your thoughts on that?
I think it's relevant. I think it's a good recommendation in terms of keeping updated. The wording part, proficient versus knowledgeable or current. I think current, updated, knowledgeable, those might be better terms.
Okay, so instead of proficient, we can say that leadership remain, that particularly IT staff and leadership remain current and updated in cybersecurity best practices. Okay, so let's do this again. Okay, I'd like to make the motion. Anybody else have any discussion or anything to say on that?
I was just going to add, I agree with the wording that's been discussed, and certainly we've all discussed this a lot, but about these being recommendations. And I feel like if the legislature or anyone else was to make this a requirement, that they would be very clear about who
Yes.
and what level of knowledge that they would want them to have.
Yeah, and there are certificates and things like that. We're in the process of developing that's why I hesitated, because they're not ready yet. But you're absolutely correct. And I thank you guys for bringing that up. Very much so. So, okay. Any other points of discussion on this before I reframe my motion? Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the following recommendation. School districts should ensure that particularly IT staff and leadership remain current and up to date in cybersecurity best practices.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's the last meeting, Tim. I had to do it. I'm sorry. Director Kane was second. Any discussion? Angela, would you take the roll, please?
Dr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Burton,
Yes.
Mr. Kane,
Yes.
Chief Chapman, Dr. Dunn, Ms. Gann,
Yes.
Mr. Gary,
Yes.
Ms. Graham,
Yes.
Ms. Green Braswell, Sheriff Pelder,
Yes.
Dr. Hernandez,
Yes.
Chief Hollenbeck,
Yes.
Dr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Ms. Poston,
Yes.
General Rutledge,
Yes.
Ms. Salas Ford,
Yeah.
Ms. Stone.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Super. Thank you. That's all from me, Chief. Anything else on the intelligence and communication end of things?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay. This is a recommendation. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Poston. This is a recommendation that came in at the last minute that I felt was worthy of discussion. And so, Lori, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yes, ma'am. So I'll read the recommendation as we have it stated now, and some of our supporting information, and am open to discussion from the commission regarding this. The recommendation at this point states, districts should have access to a dashboard or similar system that would facilitate student data analysis for identifying at-risk behaviors, allowing for early intervention that could provide additional academic, social, or emotional support. Our supporting information includes that having timely access to relevant student data supports school personnel in identifying potential at-risk behaviors in students. Schools who have a standardized process for gathering and analyzing student data are much more likely to appropriately identify needs and link students to appropriate supports. Not only can this data identify potential needs, it can also inform behavior planning and monitor student success. Supporting data to consider includes, but is not limited to, attendance issues, behavioral referrals, loss of class credit, failing grades, poor reading skills, or other indicators of impaired functioning or concerning behavior. School personnel should continue to receive appropriate training and resources to be able to identify and provide needed support for student mental and behavioral health needs. So I would make a motion that the commission approve the following recommendation. Districts should have access to a dashboard or similar system that would facilitate student data analysis for identifying at-risk behaviors, allowing for early intervention that could provide additional academic, social, or emotional support.
Is there a second? It was Sheriff Helder. Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, I just, hello. We did take out, I think there was some words in there about curricular. I can't say that. Oh my gosh, I can't talk.
Is that Tricia?
It is. I'm sorry, I can't talk. We took that out, didn't we, Lori?
We did.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, Angela, would you take the roll, please?
Dr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Burton,
Yes.
Mr. Kane,
Yes.
Chief Chapman,
Yes.
Dr. Dunn, Ms. Gann,
Yes,
Mr. Gary,
Yes.
Ms. Graham,
Yes.
Ms. Green Braswell, Sheriff Hilder,
Yes.
Dr. Hernandez,
Yes.
Chief Hollenbeck,
Yes.
Dr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Ms. Poston,
Yes.
General Rutledge,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis Ford,
Yes.
Ms. Stone.
yes.
Motion passes.
Got her done. Okay, awesome. Thank you guys for that. The next on the list is I'm gonna kind of start it off and then I'm gonna turn it over to somebody else, namely Sheriff Helder. But we have one more general recommendation. It doesn't fit into all of our nice, neat little subcommittees. But this has to do with how we get the public more aware and school district staff and everybody involved in the school district aware on how schools are doing in implementing our recommendations. This was something that Sheriff Helder had brought up a couple of meetings ago. So Sheriff, why don't you talk about it?
Well, I suppose the lead into this recommendation is that having served with some of you on the past commission, that it has become for me a source of frustration on some issues that just have not been accepted or implemented overall. And trying to figure out a way to get more involvement with the public, with our school boards, across the board to try and make sure that our message is getting out. So to preface this, I would like to thank Dr. Hernandez for taking a raw thought and kind of articulating my thoughts for me. And then of course, Courtney to kind of polish the edges a little bit. So here it is. School districts should be required to include the implementation status of the Arkansas School Safety Commission recommendations in their annual report to the public. The recommendations of the 2022 School Safety Commission are developed as best practices. Many recommendations may never become requirements through legislation or rule, but remain essential consideration for districts. Including the implementation status of school safety recommendations in a school district's annual report to the public will promote an ongoing culture of school safety among stakeholders and the community. Based on the survey from the 2018 recommendations, there has not been full implementation due to a myriad of reasons, such as lack of funding, feasibility, and sometimes lack of support at the local district level. Another barrier to implementation may be complacency over time. Districts are already required to provide an annual report to the public that includes several items such as academic goals and proposals to correct deficiencies. A district should include an annual update on progress towards school safety recommendations or the reason for lack of progress. This information would inform state and local leadership of needs and promote assistance to districts in correcting deficiencies in those identified areas. Madam Chair, if I may, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt this recommendation at the commission level as stated. School districts should be required to include the implementation status of the Arkansas School Safety Commission recommendations in their annual report to the public. Thank you.
I'm going to make an exception and I'm going to be the one to second this motion.
Thank you, Dr. May.
Any discussion? Oh, you guys are being easy today, except for Dr. Dunn.
What's your?
She doesn't have one. Oh, no, I didn't just do that, did I? Are you going to specify status? Is your microphone on, madam?
Probably not.
Madam?
Any guidance for the districts on how to report that? I know sometimes it's, you know, completed, in progress, not start, whatever, a metric of some kind.
I don't know that process had been fully discussed, but it was, I think, intentionally left a bit vague so that we're not clearly identifying what those deficiencies might be from a safety standpoint. But overall progress and I don't know, Courtney, I think we talked about this, but it was,
Yeah.
of course, I would like to call everybody out, but I think from a overall standpoint, we need to be vague in some areas.
Yeah, so the school districts have to, as is stated, have an annual report to the public where they have a meeting, allow for public input. And I think we wanted to leave it, like Sheriff Helder said, somewhat vague because it's going to depend on the school district. I would say more than likely they're going to report on, you know, here's the recommendation, here's what we've done to try to achieve that. But we didn't want to require too many specifics for safety reasons. We didn't want them to have to disclose what they haven't done in case that could create a safety issue. But has been said several times that the department through our new school safety coordinator and unit will be monitoring that and keeping up with that as well. So there will be some uniform measurement. We just didn't want to require that in all of the public meetings.
Uh-oh, did you hear that? Can we quote you? It's awesome. Any other discussion? Angela, would you take the roll, please?
Dr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Burton,
Yes.
Mr. Kane,
Yes.
Chief Chapman,
Yes.
Dr. Dunn, Miss Gann,
Yes.
Mr. Gary,
Yes.
Miss Graham,
Yes.
Miss Green Braswell,
Yes.
Sheriff Helder,
Yes.
Dr. Hernandez,
Yes.
Chief Hollenbeck,
Yes.
Dr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Miss Poston,
Yes.
General Rutledge.
Yeah.
Miss Alice Ford,
Yeah.
Miss Stone.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Wow. Okay, is there anything else that we haven't done that we need to do? What do you want now? I mean, yes, Sheriff Helder.
To complete my initial thought, early on, you know, and I don't want to sound too gruff on this, but not necessarily a shaming campaign, but trying to incentivize schools to get on board, you know, and so as discussed prior to this, there are mechanisms in place, I believe, from a academic progression or where their progress, there's like a scorecard that's out there. my initial thought was there should be an equally important report card on your progress is made on the school safety
Oh, now I know
recommendations.
where you're going.
And, man, just the more we talk about it and have kind of vetted this out, even though I would like it to be that way, I think that it could be, have negative connotations. And what I mean by that is if we came up with an overall scorecard for school safety and we identified schools that were clearly not adopting the majority of then that, even though it sends the message to the public, hey, let's go, let's push this forward, it could also notify somebody that has ill intent what the easy pickings are out there. So kind of had to kick that around, and I've talked to Dr. May, Dr. Others. I've talked to a lot of people about this, but how do we, or is there a way to try and further incentivize schools rather than make it a negative? Marvin, I think that you mentioned the other day in a casual conversation, well, how about instead of being negative, that we might not try to find a way to incentivize? I clearly don't know all the mechanisms in place to do that, but this is something that Dr. May and I kind of tossed out, and I just thought it'd be a good topic for discussion. It may go nowhere.
Sure.
It may go nowhere, but
Sure.
I kind of want to hear from everybody. So the Division of Elementary and Secondary Education, in collaboration with the Arkansas Center for School Safety, Arkansas Association of School Administrators, and other key stakeholders, should develop a school safety award/recognition system or program for school districts that incentivizes the implementation of the Arkansas School Safety Commission recommendations. And, from my standpoint, it doesn't clearly do what I had hoped, but I think I've come full circle to understand why we can't do that. But it seems like this might be a way in y'all's world, if we can figure out how to incentivize schools to do this. It won't clearly identify schools that are doing nothing, but it will recognize the ones that are really going above and beyond and taking this seriously. So those are my thoughts. Happy for discussion.
Courtney, I'm thinking that's more under if we decide to go down that road. We've actually brought this up, now that I think about it, in the Safe Schools Committee. And that maybe it should be the Safe Schools Committee that looks at the feasibility of doing something like this, because we as a group, we're gonna, it's our last hurrah. By law, we'll be, once the report is in, we're done. Toast, fini, kaput, get my drift. Just kidding. But the Safe Schools Committee has always been the one that's kind of carried the torch on a lot of the stuff, and is, a big reason why we've made so much progress in some areas that we have. So just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is a good task for the committee, because I foresee, having to set kind of standards of what it is that we want to see, how we would go about identifying those school districts. And so I think it's a good recommendation, lots of areas to flesh out. And so that would be a good task for the committee members to do.
Yeah, so we would want to, if you want to do that as a recommendation, boy, that went down the wrong pipe. I'm sorry. Water. No, I've got some. That instead of DESE and the Arkansas Center and AAEA, all of those groups are represented in the School Safety Committee. So we change the language that the School Safety Committee investigate the feasibility of, and then the rest of the stuff that you had, I think, would fit.
Sheriff Helder, I too was kind of dreaming of a way that we could celebrate districts, because being punitive is not directly align with the way we believe things.
No,
You know, if you're positive behavior supports, you are using positive means to get people to do more. And so maybe if we don't make it a public thing like those letter grades, but if maybe through my friend's department here, that we recognize schools, you know, and do that kind of thing, but not put targets on people's backs. So maybe, you know, looking at it in that way where you just kind of give them a certificate or.
and it would be voluntary.
Yes, yes.
You know,
yes,
that
yes.
if they wanted to do that, then in my opinion, that's when that process would kick in.
Absolutely, but definitely recognizing when folks are doing more than, you know, just going above and beyond and making sure that they're engaging in the work that we've suggested that they engage in.
Well, and I also see it coincides with the public recognition of the progress made on the recommendations, along with how they are actually meeting those particular needs, because the incentivizing schools based upon academic performance, much like the conversation we were having, I can see this as a mechanism for how schools are actually incentivized as far as the progress they're making toward actually achieving and addressing the various recommendations that's out there. So I think a further conversation around this piece would certainly bring it on the radar, because our overall mission is to enhance safety practices, best practices across the board. And I think this is one way not only just to measure it, but also ensure that the public is made very much aware of what's taking place based upon the work that's been put in.
Sure. Devil's in the details. Sheriff Helder, would you like to make a motion?
I can give it a shot here, and then hopefully we can muddle through it to make it acceptable. The recommendation would be that the School Safety Committee, sorry, I can't read my own writing. Investigate the feasibility of developing a school safety award / recognition system or program for school districts that incentivizes the implementation of the Arkansas School Safety Commission recommendations. Did I hit the points? That would be my motion, Madam Chair. And it further state that I think that
This can't be part of your motion. I'm
it's
just
not the
telling you.
motion. Okay, I'll wait till we get a second.
Second.
It was Chief Hollenbeck. It was Harold, Chief Hollenbeck. Here we go. This is going to be a.
Can we talk to you?
Meeting's gonna, yeah, I know. Chief Hollenbeck was second. Okay, what discussion? Any additional discussion?
I have a little, if you'd
I
like.
wonder who. Oh, Sheriff Helder, please.
But I was just going to make a point that since we adopted the earlier motion of implementation of the annual discussion of progress and whatnot, this would also be an opportunity for schools that I think Bill threw out the term like a blue ribbon deal, or what a school that they could brag on themselves, not without necessarily saying exactly what all, but they could say, we have risen to this level that, and I think it would be a great point for schools to be able to make if we had a system in place. So thank you all for listening and helping me work through this. Thank you.
Any other discussion? And you're going to do the justification, right? Yeah. Yeah, we're listening.
Dr. Hernandez, you're still on. You and David Hopkins, get ready.
I need it as soon
I
as
think you just
possible.
volunteered to be on the committee as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, after that discussion, Angela, would you take the roll call, please?
Dr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Burton, Mr. Kane, Chief Chapman, Dr. Dunn, Ms. Gann,
Yes.
Mr. Gary.
Yes.
Ms. Graham,
Yes.
Green Braswell,
Yes.
Sheriff Helder,
Yes.
Dr. Hernandez,
Yes.
Chief Hollenbeck,
Yes.
Dr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Ms. Poston,
Yes.
General Rutledge, Ms. Salas Ford, Ms. Stone.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Okay. Have we missed anything? I mean, I'm sorry, guys, but this has been, I'm just gonna say some things. Our first commission, the 2018 commission, we worked 9 months. We did a lot. And those of you who were my colleagues on that commission know how hard we worked. But what we've accomplished in these 4 months is just absolutely incredible. And there's a part of me that I hate to see it end, although in some ways I know it's not. And, you know, the Safe Schools Committee to me is the driving force. And we do have some people on this commission that are members of that committee. I think it's critically important that we understand what an incredible comprehensive review that we've done in 4 months. And we've met every week. You all are truly an extraordinary group of individuals that I'm blessed to have had the opportunity to work with. And I know our only driving force, that's it, zero, no other issues, is us making our schools safer for our kids. And I thank you for that from the bottom of my heart. Now, there is one person who kind of sits down there way at the end of the table. She's trying not to listen to me. She's down there giggling. And, you know, she has been a right arm to all of us, especially me. Angela, could you come down here a minute? Yes, ma'am. That's the closest I'm going to give to giving you an order. Giving you an order. Could you come down here? We can't begin to thank you enough for everything that you've done to help us. We love you. This can't even come close, but thank you. You're awesome. Thank you. Absolutely awesome. I wasn't sure if flowers were going to do the trick, but now I know they did. Oh, don't tell me that. I worried about that too, Tim, I'll tell you. Okay, anything else? From you folks that snuck out on Zoom? Slackers?
I have something. It's not a question.
It's not a discussion?
It's a statement. I just want to thank you for your leadership, Dr. May, and I'm sure I have many seconds in the room. You've done an amazing job. It's been very inspiring to watch.
Thank you.
And be part of this.
Very much. Thank you. Very, very much. Okay. General, I knew you, I was like, I opened the door wide. Yes, madam.
Well, on behalf of the state, I just want to thank all the commission members for their leadership and time and effort that they've put into it each and every week, all the subcommittee meetings that they've attended and been part of in the discussions. My team has kept me apprised over the last several months, and it's just really a testament to this group that the governor has assembled to be here and to put these recommendations forth to keep our children safe. I had the opportunity to be at the BB schools this morning, and we went through several different buildings as part of a separate tour. And it was just remarkable to see a school that had implemented already some of these safety measures and the doors locked and such. And I think we've got incredible educators across the state that love our kids. We've got parents who want their kids to be safe, and the work that this commission has done over the last several months is just it's who we are as Arkansans. And I just want to thank each of you for your leadership and the time that you've taken out of your jobs and positions. So thank you.
Thank you, General. Okay, then it's my last official duty as chair, we are adjourned. Yeah, we need to have a get together somewhere. We need to do that.